Okay, today we're going to start a little mini unit on poetry. So the next 3 days, we're going to be looking at poetry. We've looked at informational texts this year, and we've looked at narrative texts, which are like fictional texts. We've done a little bit of poetry, but really not a whole lot. So Miss Elizabeth and I are going to go away from our unit for just a little bit, for just 3 days. We're going to focus on poetry. Then we'll come back and we'll start a new unit on Monday. So we're going to work on poetry for the next 3 days, the rest of this week, okay? Yes, Hayes?
We did a poetry story in Observing Nature. I think that's the last one we did.
Okay, so it's been a little while, so I feel like we need to go back and review some of that stuff. Yes, Bryson?
Are we going to do poetry, and isn't that going to be really hard?
No, poetry's not hard. Poetry can be fun. We're going to have a little bit of fun with it. Yes, Landon?
When Hayes said we only did one poetry, I believe we did two.
Wait, you have done one with me about the old man that had white hair. Do y'all remember that one? But we haven't done a lot of poetry. So whether it's one or it's two, I know you've done at least two. But there hasn't been a lot of poetry. So we're going to spend some time reviewing those skills, maybe learning a few things, new things about poetry. And then we'll get back to our units on Monday, okay? Gavin, last question. What you got? We need to get started.
We try to write our own poems.
We'll have some time to do something like that, maybe during enrichment. Okay? All right, so I need everybody in star facing the front. Okay, our first poem, we're going to work with a couple of different poems today. The first poem we're going to look at is The Drum. Okay, it is a very short poem. When you look at this, it is only 5 lines long. It says, everybody follow along with me. When you read poetry, you want to kind of pause at the end of each line. Okay, remember these are called lines, not stanzas. Okay, so we're going to kind of pause before we go to the next one. You read poetry a little bit slower than you would a normal story. Okay, so it says, Daddy says the world is a drum tight and hard. And I told him I'm going to beat out my own rhythm. Okay, so this poem is very short. How many lines does this poem have? How many lines does this poem have, Caius? 5. Okay, so these are called lines. Out beside this, I want you to write line. And there are 5 lines. So this is a very short poem. Do you see rhyming words at the end of your lines? No, so this is not a rhyming poem. It's a short poem. It does not rhyme. And the lines the same length? No. Like this one has how many words? 5. How many does this one have?
4.
So if they're not the same number of words or the same number of syllables, they're not the same length, and they don't rhyme, and it's very short, it's not following a pattern. Just here, how many words do I have? 5. How many here?
3.
3. How many here?
4.
4. Is there any kind of pattern to it? No. So because it's not rhyming, there's not a pattern, there's none of those specific things that would show you that they're being very strategic in the way they wrote it. This is called a free verse poem. It's just a poem that has no real structure to it. It was just a very free poem. They didn't really have any rules to follow. They just wrote a poem. So I want you to write free verse at the top. This is a free verse poem. Yes, Landon.
When it says, Daddy says the world is a drum, tight and hard, and I told him I'm going to beat out my own rhythm, that makes me think she's going to have her own life.
We're about to talk about what the poem means. So you hold on to that, okay? You're a little bit ahead of us. Okay, so free verse, because this doesn't follow any real rules. Okay, they just wrote a poem. They just started and wrote. Okay? Now, when it says, Daddy says the world is a drum tight and hard, and I told him I'm going to beat out my own rhythm. What point of view is this poem written from? I should say every hand in the room, because we're going to work on point of view for at least 3 weeks. Everybody in the class should know what it is. Lillian, what you got? Do it. Okay. I want you thinking about it. Braylon, what do you think it is? First person. I need that hand up with participation. At the top, I want you to write first POV. Okay, I saw several hands. So several of you knew that it was first person. Or several of you were ready to answer that. Why do we think that it's first person? How do you know this is first person, Briley?
Because it's him, the character's telling a story about himself.
Yes, the narrator's telling a story about themselves. Okay, and there are clue words there, but remember we don't look at the clue words first. She is talking about herself. The way we know she's talking about herself is she says, I and my own. She's talking about her own self, her own rhythm. Those are some clue words. Okay, I love that Callan's got those underlined. Good job, Callan. You're getting a dojo point. Remember, if it's on my board, it needs to be on your paper. Yes, Hayes, what you got?
I didn't capitalize the I by itself.
They didn't. Sometimes in poetry, they don't follow grammar rules. Like if you look, there's no periods because they use lines. Poetry is just a little different. They don't follow all those grammatical rules, okay?
They didn't capitalize the D.
Yes, they didn't capitalize the D. They didn't capitalize that They just don't really follow the grammatical rules in poetry. All right, so let's talk about the meaning of this poem. Yes, Gavin?
When there's like a sentence and no matter what, all the letters are capitalized, it's in a font called Sans, where letters are always lowercase and not capitalized.
Okay, that is really cool information, but that doesn't have anything to do with our poetry, right? So let's try to stay on topic, okay? I do love that information, though. Okay, let's move on. So it says, Daddy says the world is a drum, tight, and hard. What do you think when it says Daddy says the world is a drum? What does that mean? What do you think that means? Daddy says the world is a drum. Think about drums. Think about what you know about the world. What kind of inference? What do you think he means when he says that? What kind of inference could you make? Callan, what do you think?
I think it means that he will go like really far away to go play drums.
Okay. I understand why you think that. But if it says that it is, that means they're comparing it, right? So he's saying the world is like a drum. It doesn't really have anything to do with him playing it. He's comparing the world to a drum, right? Okay, I want to everybody make sure you got this on your paper. That way we know that there is some comparison there. Now this is not a simile because they didn't put the word like or as. But it is still a comparison. So if it's a comparison without like or as, this would be a metaphor. Out beside this, I want you to write metaphor. Thank you, Hayes. What is it, everybody?
Metaphor.
Thank you. So they are comparing the world to a drum. In that comparison, what are they trying to say? What are they saying, Jerry?
Like he's trying to say like the world's loud.
Okay, maybe loud. What do you think, Ruthie?
I think he means what he means by Daddy says the world is a drum, tight, and hard is she means that like the world has its own way of doing things,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe she can do her own thing too.
Okay, we're not to that point yet. The world does kind of have its own thing. Drums do their own thing, right? And these clues that it's tight and hard. Do we think the world can be hard sometimes?
Yes.
Yes, the world can be hard. Life is hard. What else do you think he might be trying to say? There are a couple different ways you could go with this. What do you think, Wyatt?
That there's music all over the world.
Okay, maybe there's music. Is all the music the same?
No.
Are all drums the same?
No.
What else do you know about the world? Thinking about that, how music's not the same, the drums aren't the same, the world is what? What do you think, Hayes?
With a drum, you can beat it light and you can hit it hard. So I think he's meaning that You can do whatever you want.
Okay, so you could beat it light, you could beat it hard, you could play the drum however you want. What do you think, Landon?
I think it means, like when it says a drum tight and hard, I told him I'm going to beat out my own rhythm. I think it means that I want to have my own life.
But we're not to that point yet. You're kind of with Ruthie. Y'all are going ahead to but we're just talking about this part. What does this mean?
I know.
Okay, just when he says the world is like a drum. I think a lot of you said it's loud, the world's hard. The world could you could play the drums hard or light. The world can be good sometimes, can be hard sometimes. He said, Lion said it's like music. Music, not all music's the same. Not all drums are the same. So what do you know about the world? Gavin?
Nobody is alike.
Nobody's alike.
Everyone's different.
Everyone's different. When you look at drums, how many different kinds of drums are there? A lot. There are big drums, little drums, drums that you play with your hands, drums you play with sticks, drums that you play with mallets. There are all kinds of drums. In the world, is everything the same?
No.
Okay, so the world's very diverse, and it's kind of like drums. We'll get to the rest about what she's saying, but they're just saying the world is very diverse. Everything is not the same, okay? So here I want you to write the world is diverse. Diverse means that it's just different. Everything is not the same. People are different. The jobs that you have are different. The lives that you live are different. Thinking about somebody's point of view. We talked about how the life you live changes your point of view about things. Like somebody in here might live on a farm. And when they go home, they have to feed their animals. They've got to clean the stalls. They've got a lot of work to do. Somebody else, their parents may still be at work when they get home, and they've got an hour to play a game. That's a very different life, right? But you're still in the same classroom. You're still in the same world, but your lives are two completely different lifestyles. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so let's read the rest of it. What you got, Gavin?
An example of what you just said is like sometimes when I get home every other day, I have to like clean out my hamster's cage. And
Right.
sometimes refill his food or water.
So you got some jobs to do, some chores,
but,
right?
He doesn't drink a lot of water, mainly because wild hamsters live in the desert.
Oh, but he's living at your house, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Jerry, what you got?
What she just said, some people might have chores when they get home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they might. And so their life would be a little different, right? Their lifestyle. If y'all are talking about, let's kind of move on a little bit, unless it's got something to do with the poem, okay? Landon, what you got?
My dad, he was actually a drummer in a band.
Yeah.
Cool. So he could tell you about some of the different kinds of drums, right? Yes. What you got, Bryson? Okay, Caius?
I've actually touched a piano before.
Cool.
I went with Cash to like some church place, and I seen a piano.
Cool. Okay, Wyatt, last one. We got to move on. What you got, honey?
My dad plays the drum, and he also plays the guitar. And sometimes I join in with him when he's playing the guitar, and I play my keyboard.
Cool. I bet that's fun. Okay, let's move on. So Dad says the world is like a drum, tight and hard. This is Dad's what? Point of view. How Dad feels. What Dad thinks. Okay, now, this says, and I told him. So now we're changing from Dad's point of view to whose?
The author.
The girls, or it could be a boy. We don't really know. But the authors, the narrator, the character. Okay, so we're changing to her point of view. She's going to tell us what she thinks. She said, and I told him, I'm going to beat out my own rhythm. Now, a couple of you have already said what you think that means. What do you think it means when she says, I'm going to beat out my own rhythm? What do you think that means? Landon, you said a couple of times what you think. Let's tell us again.
I think it means that she's gonna she wants to live her life on her own. She wants to follow her own rules and do what she wants.
Yeah, so follow her own rules, do what she wants, live her own life. Alyssa, add on to that.
Add on to Landon because I think she wants to go off and adventure and explore the world and see it in her own way.
Okay, so maybe see the world for herself, see how diverse it is. Hayes, what do you think? Add on to that.
I would like to add on to Landon and Alyssa because
Kobe, I need you to pay attention.
different from other people.
Okay, she wants to be different. She doesn't want to do what everyone else
Does.
is doing. Okay, what do you think, Ruthie?
I would like to add on to all of them things because I think that what she means by that is like she has her own unique way of doing things,
Mhm.
and she doesn't want to know what everybody else's opinion is.
Okay, last one. What do you think, Jerry?
And one more time, all four of them because I forgot what I was gonna say, but it was I think she wants to go on an adventure and she wants to try to make up her own music.
Okay, so maybe she's gonna do some music because you're going back to the drum. That's true. But does she really mean that she's gonna beat a drum? No. So if she says I'm gonna beat out my own rhythm, but that's not what she really means. What she really means is she wants to live her own life. She wants to have her own path. If it's not really what she means, then it's non-literal language. Anybody know what we call that when you say something and it's not really what you mean? What do we call that, Bryson? What do you think, Briley?
I think it's called non-literal language.
It is, but there's a specific word for what it is. What do you think, Wyatt?
Idiom.
An idiom. I want you to underline, beat out my own rhythm, and I want you to write idiom. Whoop. Sorry, I spelled that wrong. Got to talking and going too fast. It is an idiom. She does not really mean that she's going to beat the drum. Now, I heard someone say they thought it was a simile. We talked about similes last week. Remember, similes are when you're comparing things using like or as. Here, they were comparing the world to a drum, but they did not use like or as, so it was a metaphor. This, if she says, I'm going to beat out my own rhythm, does she really mean she's going to beat out her own rhythm? No. So if it's not really what she means, it's non-literal language. It's called an idiom. Kind of like if I said it's raining cats and dogs.
Yes.
Would you really see cats and dogs come from the ceiling or from the sky? No, you wouldn't. So it's non-literal language. What I really mean is that it's raining hard. Okay, that's an idiom. Okay, go ahead and y'all did really good with this. Go ahead and put this in your desk. You'll need it later, so don't worry about getting your binder out. Just put it in your desk. I am passing out we're going to work a little bit more on poetry today. So I'm passing out a paper. I need your name on the front, and you need to be on the side that says poem structure. What side?
Poem structure.
Thank you. Your name needs to be on the top.
This is.
Alright, Bryson's getting a dojo point. He's quiet. He's got his name on his paper and he's ready to go. Good job, Bryson. Alright. Let me find mine. Here we go. Alright, so we're going to talk about poem structure. We're still working with poetry, and we're going to look at a couple of different poems today. But we're also going to look at the parts of a poem. So we're going to read the poem, but we're also going to be talking about the different parts of it. So I'm going to read this box at the top. When we made copies, it shaded it pretty dark. So I'm going to read it to you. It's a little hard to see. Everybody there? Okay, it says, poetry uses creative language to appeal to a reader's emotions and imagination. A lot of times in poetry, they're imagining things, okay? It says poetry often has a regular pattern of rhythm, and it may also have a regular pattern of rhyme. rhythm is a pattern of sounds in a line. Okay, so like if they have the same number of syllables, that would be the rhythm. It's the beat that it goes. When you say it, if it kind of sounds like a beat, then it's got rhythm. The poem that we just did not have rhythm because it was a free verse poem. Okay. All right, let's keep going. It says rhyme happens when two or more words end with a similar sound. I want everybody to underline that. A lot of the poems that we have today and throughout the week will have rhyming in them. It's when two or more words end with a similar sound. You should have learned about rhyming in kindergarten, but every year there are some that are confused about what rhyming is. Rhyming is when they have the same sound at the what? End. So if I have this, sat and sad,
No.
them starting with the same sound does not make them rhyming words. You're looking at the end. Sat and sad, that's not the same sound. Those do not rhyme. An example of words that would rhyme would be cat and sat and bat and fat and pat. They all have the same sound at the end. Okay? A hat, baby. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Okay, so those words have the same sound at the end. They are rhyming words. A lot of times poets use rhyming words, okay?
They also all have A's before the T.
Yes, because that at is the sound.
I also found
All right, we need to keep on going. Ready? Everybody's looking at the box? It says alliteration is the repetition of consonant sounds. Right? Say consonant sounds. So not vowel sounds, consonant sounds at the beginning of words. Okay, so alliteration would be sat. If I said the sad cat sat at or sat stop in the sand. All of those, several words in that sentence start with a S. So alliteration is when they have the same sound at the beginning. Rhyming is when they have the same sound at the end. Okay? And it's a consonant sound because most of your words start with consonants. If it's a word like this, in, where it starts with a vowel, that will never be included in your alliteration. Okay? Yes, Hayes.
Alliteration is kind of like it helps like a tongue twister.
Yes, it kind of makes a tongue, like Sandy sold seashells down by the seashore.
Yeah, that's what
That's alliteration. Okay? Yes.
I don't know if Ruthie or Stella or Travis remembers this, but when we were in Head Start, we had rhymes where it was like hickory dickory dock.
Yes. Yeah.
Hickory.
Okay. We're back in the box. Everybody with me? 5, 4. It says a stanza is a group of lines set apart by spaces. So in poetry, you do not have paragraphs, you have stanzas. And you don't have sentences, you have lines. So everybody circle the word stanza and the word lines. When we're talking about poems, we will never use the words paragraphs or sentences. So we'll say stanzas and lines. Do you have that on your paper, Gavin? All right, so we're going to read the next poem. And we're really going to focus on the rhyme and alliteration. That's what we're looking for, okay? Rhythm is when you have a beat. We're not going to focus so much on that. That's not really one of our 4th grade things. You'll learn about that more as you go. We're really going to focus on the rhyme and the alliteration. Are we ready?
Yes,
So everybody's looking at this little poem on the top. Read it for us. Wyatt. Everybody's on along.
He eats, he sleeps, he laughs, he cries. He has soft blonde hair and big blue eyes. He splashes me when we go for a swim, but he's my baby brother. I'll always love him.
Okay. So this is a poem that's in what point of view? First. Who's telling the story?
The brother.
The
sister.
The sister, but she's telling a story about her
Baby brother.
and how she what? Feels. So if it's telling me how she feels, then it's what point of view? First person. Okay, so at the top, I want you to write first person. It's telling me how she feels about her brother. Okay, now let's look for an example of the rhyming. Rhymes. We're going to talk about the rhyme scheme. So what are in the first two lines? He eats, he sleeps, he laughs, he cries. He has soft blonde hair and big blue eyes. What do you see that rhymes in those first two lines? Gavin?
Cries and eyes.
Cries and eyes. Everybody circle those. Okay, and because they rhyme, you with me, Wyatt?
When I raised my hand at my arm popped.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I know that hurt, but I want you to put your glasses on so that you can see, and I want you to go with me, okay? Okay, when we're talking about the rhyme scheme, that's the pattern of the rhyming. You will always start with the letter A. So we're going to letter these rhyming pairs. So because both of these cries and eyes, they both rhyme, so we're going to label both of them with the letter A. Raise your hand. Don't say anything. Raise your hand if you have done this before. If this looks familiar to you. Okay. All right, go ahead and put your hands down. Okay, the next line, line 3. Because remember, we don't use sentences, we use lines. So line 3 says, he splashes me when we go for a swim, but he's my baby brother. I'll always love him. What rhymes in those lines, Nadia? Swim and him. They have the same sound at the end. So we're going to circle those. They rhyme. Now, does swim rhyme with cries and eyes? No, so it does not get an A. It's a new rhyme pair. So we're going to go with what letter? B. Now, does him rhyme with swim? Yes. So it also gets what letter? B. These are a pair. They rhyme together, so they have the same letter. These swim and eyes do not rhyme, so their letter needs to be different. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Travis, does that make sense to you? I can tell you're a little bit confused about it. Do swim and eyes rhyme? When I say swim, eyes, do they have the same sound at the end? No, so they don't rhyme. Because they don't rhyme, they're not a pair. Okay? And because they're not a pair, they need different letters. Now when I say swim and him, do they have the same sound at the end? Swim, him. They have the same sound at the end, right? So they're a rhyming pair. Because they're a rhyming pair, they need matching letters. So they get B because A is already taken. Does that make a little more sense? Okay, and we're doing some more poems today, so if you are still a little confused, don't worry, we'll get there, okay? All right, and I know he's not the only one. I know there are several of us, but I could just tell by your face you were. Okay, so if we have a rhyme, now that's the end of our poem. That's our rhyme scheme. It has made a what?
Repetition.
Alliteration.
A pattern. It's made a pattern. When your rhyming makes a pattern, it's called your rhyme scheme. Everybody say rhyme scheme.
Rhyme scheme.
Okay, so right here by rhyme scheme, our rhyme scheme is A, B, B. It's the pattern that our rhyming words are in. Your rhyme scheme is the pattern of your rhyme. Everybody needs that on their paper. Lillian, you got it? Yes. Good. Hayes, what you got?
So what if we had 2 stanzas and there were some other lines after, like the last 2 lines rhyme with swim in here, but we put B with it or a D?
You would put B if they rhyme with the ones that are B. And the next poem we do will have some like that, so you'll get to see an example of it. But yes, if they rhyme with the ones that are B, then you would put B. Yes, Bryson.
Most of every poem, rhyme has an end.
Not every poem. Like, some poems are free verse. A lot of them do, yes. All right, Travis, what you got? Quick.
What
we ever have something like, say, cries rhymes with I, so it'd be an A, but what if it rhymes with something that
Something else?
yeah.
Then you would put an A. Anything that has that rhyming goes with the letter A.
For our rhyme scheme, would like if we had, would it just go down in the order?
Okay, y'all are thinking hard about this, and I love that you're paying attention. You're really thinking about what if. Don't worry about the what ifs because I have another poem today. You got 2 poems tomorrow and some poems on Friday. So you're going to see an example of everything you're talking about. Okay? So yes, you're worrying about something that I'm going to teach you. Just hold on tight. Okay? And if by Friday your question is not answered for that, then let me know and we'll find one that answers it. Okay? But right now I think you're worrying about something that's not there and it's going to confuse you. Okay? So wait till we get to that point. Yes, Jerry.
Does cries and eyes rhyme with rhymes?
Rise, eyes, rhymes. No, rhymes has the ends that rhymes. Yes.
You said you rhyme words earlier.
What were they?
Together and letter.
Together.
Swim him.
Okay. All right, let's focus. We're ready? Now, in alliteration, we're thinking about words that start with the same sound. Okay? A lot of times, the rhyming words will be at the end of the line. But alliteration will be in the middle and the beginning. Okay? So I'm going to do the first one and show you an example, and then I'm going to let you guys find some alliteration. The first sentence. Everybody look at the first sentence on your paper. Your paper, Ruthie. Your paper. Okay, it says he eats. He laughs. He cries. They start with that's alliteration. If I look at the next one, he has. Those are 2 what sounds together? H. He has soft blonde hair and big blue eyes. So he's got blonde hair and big blue eyes. They're using those same what sounds? B. Okay, so alliteration is when you have the same sound at the beginning. And a lot of times poets will put alliteration in there. They will put those same sounds at the beginning to give their readers attention. Okay? I want you to see if you can find alliteration in the last line. There is one example. Okay, there's one set of alliteration here and one set of alliteration here. I want you to see if you can find them. Remember, alliteration is at the beginning of a word. Okay, see if you can find them. Underline your alliteration.
You forgot to underline hair in line 2 because that's got alliteration.
Yes, okay. All right, will you look for alliteration in the next line, Gavin?
There's actually 2 on the third line. 4th line. There's 3.
I think you are underlining some that may not be quite alliteration.
Can I say what I underline?
And we'll talk about it and see.
All
All right, give me an example of the alliteration that you found, Landon. What line are you in, 3 or 4?
3.
Okay, tell me what you got in 3.
When he splashes me, when we go for a swim.
Yes, when and we should be the only alliteration that you have. Now, some of you might have underlined splashes and swim. But those have several words in between them, right? That could sometimes be an example of alliteration, but really alliteration is when they're pretty close together. If it's spread apart, then it loses the effect. Does that make sense? Alliteration is supposed to get your reader's attention. Kind of be like a little tongue twister for them. So you don't want a long space between them. So we're looking for words that are pretty close together. Okay. Now here I do have a few words, 2 words in between blind and big, but that's a list. They're in there together with a list, so that's okay. This is all the way at the end of the sentence, so I wouldn't necessarily count that as alliteration. Does that make sense? Y'all see the difference? Okay, in line 4, what would your alliteration be, Briley?
But, baby, brother.
Okay. But he's my baby brother. They have the same sound at the beginning. Okay, what you got?
Is he's and him?
I wouldn't count those because they're so far away from each other, okay? So it's not just if you can find any letter, any word with this letter. They need to be kind of close together to make that sound where there's a lot of the same sound in one line. Does that make sense? Okay. So now an example of alliteration, we're going to write any example we found. I would write baby and brother here. You could write when and we. You could write blind, big, and blue. But do not write he. That is the same sound. So that is an example of alliteration, but it's also an example of something else we're going to talk about in just a minute. Yes, Landon?
When you said it loses its effect because it's too far apart, it reminded me of a magnet. When it sticks, it's like they're close together, but when you pull them apart, they won't stick because they're not close.
That's a good example. All right. Everybody got that? Okay. Now, at the bottom, I want to see both of them. Okay, so repetition. Alliteration is when they have the same sound at the beginning. Repetition, a lot of times poets will repeat a word over and over and over. Okay, so repetition means to what? Repeat. So if they are repeating it over and over and over, that's usually another way that they get your attention. Okay, I want you to write to repeat. And then what is an example of repetition that you saw in that poem? Something that they said over and over and over. Hayes, what you got? He. Alma Sandios, I want you to write he. An example of repetition for this sentence is he. He said, he eats, he sleeps, he laughs, he cries. They're trying to get your attention. So repetition is when they use the same word over and over and over. They repeat it. Kobe, I need this on your paper. When you have a hard time doing it by yourself later, because you're not paying attention, I do not want you hollering for help. Do you have your example of alliteration in the box? You're pretty far behind. I know, we already wrote it and have erased it and moved on. What's an example of alliteration that you have? You don't even have them underlined like I had them underlined. You're not paying a bit of attention. Baby, brother, they both start with the B sound. Write both of those words here. And I need you to get with me. If I look up again and you're not paying attention, you're going to find the book. That's your warning. You got it? All right. So the next two things we're going to talk about, and we will not talk about them a lot this week, but I do want to mention them. The tone. Okay, a tone is like the author's attitude, but when we're writing poetry, we call them a
Rhythm.
What is the person that writes a poem called?
Narrator.
A poet. Good, Nadia. Nadia, you're getting a dojo point. What's a poet? What's the author of a poem called? A poet. Okay, so the tone is the poet's attitude towards a subject. So the way that the poet feels about it. Are they mean about something? Are they happy about something? What is their tone? Kind of like a tone is the way that you say something. Like if I say, okay guys, we need to calm down. That's a warning, right? If I say, okay, I'm tired of talking about this, I need you to calm down. What has changed?
Your
tone. Right? My voice. The attitude that I have when I say it. Okay, so the tone is the poet's attitude. So here I want you to write attitude. Toward a subject. Toward whatever they're talking about. Whatever's in the poem. So in this poem, she's talking about her what?
Baby brother.
Her baby brother. And her tone towards him, the way she feels about him is what? Nice. Loving. Happy. You can tell she cares about him, loves him. Okay. What do you have?
For those points, instead of putting a line, you have your salesman running.
Okay, we're not worried about that. Bryson, what you got?
I have a word that rhymes with
What?
line.
Landon.
When you said attitude, that reminds me of mood, but
We're about to talk about mood. Okay, so tone. Last thing, Wyatt, what you got?
Something that rhymes with cries and eyes, flies.
Yes. All right, let's focus. Y'all quit giving me rhyme and pairs. I know you can rhyme. We gotta move on. Okay, tone. We're ready? The tone is a poet's attitude. The mood is the reader, how the reader feels. Oh, that's not gonna. Let me move it up.
Miss, you can place that over
Miss.
here. It goes.
Okay, the mood is how the reader feels. So when you read a poem, how does the poem make you feel? What kind of mood does it put you in? When you read a poem about the baby brother, does it make you happy and like, oh, that's so sweet? Maybe when you read the poem about the drum, you were like, oh, I'm ready to go live my life. So how does it make you feel as the what? Reader. That is called what? Mood. Okay, I need everybody with me. When it's how the reader feels, it's called your what? Mood. So what is the mood that poem puts you in? Okay? Alright, we're going to do this next one, we're going to do a little bit together and a little bit by yourself. Okay, Alyssa, what do you have, honey?
Today, the cats are red with blonde hair and big blue eyes. Exactly how my baby was.
Really? So I bet that would put you in a good mood, right? Alright, everybody flip over to the back. It says friends. Now this poem is going to be a little longer. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Alright, it's going to be a little bit longer. Some of it we'll do together. Some you're going to do by yourself. Okay, I'm going to wait on us. Y'all done so good all morning. Don't lose it now. Okay, before we get started, how many stanzas do you see? How many stanzas do you see, Jerry? 4. Okay, so I want you to put, let me get where we can have the whole poem there. There we go. Okay, I want you to put a little bracket around each stanza. Remember, your stanzas are similar to paragraphs. We do not call them paragraphs, we call them stanzas. And in this poem, every stanza has what, Bryson? 4 lines, okay? So, right here, just this one is 1 line. Just this one is another line. We don't call them stanzas, we call them lines. If you look beside, it says 5 here, right? They're numbering the what? Lines. That's the 5th line. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if you keep on going, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They number every 5 lines. That is to help you, like when you're taking a test. They may say, what did the poet mean by lines 12 and 13? Well, instead of having to count all the way to 12, you could find 10 and then do 10, 11, 12, and 13. And you could read just those 2 lines to see what the poet means. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's how they're helping you. Alright, so we have stanzas, we have lines. Do you have that on your paper? Raylan, you got it on your paper? Okay. We're going to read the first couple of stanzas together, and we're going to start with our rhyme scheme, and then I'm going to let you finish up the rhyme scheme. Okay, so let's look at the first stanza. Read the first stanza for us nice and loud, Nadia. Everybody's looking at their paper, the first stanza.
His tail is short and stubby. His ears are not the same. He always greets me at the door. Fido is his name.
Okay, so in that stanza, which words rhyme? Remember, your rhyming happens at the end of the line. So which words rhyme? I should see every hand in the room. Which words rhyme? Lillian, what do you think? Name and same. Circle those 2 words. Does stubby rhyme with anything?
No.
Does door rhyme with anything?
No.
No. So when we're writing our rhyme scheme, everybody say rhyme scheme.
Rhyme scheme.
Okay, the rhyme scheme always starts with what letter?
A.
A. So stubby's gonna get A. Now did stubby rhyme with same?
No.
So does same get A?
No.
No, they're not a pair. They don't rhyme. Same is gonna get the letter B. Because they do not what? Rhyme. Now does door rhyme with same?
No.
Does door rhyme with stubby?
No.
No. So I'm going to give the next letter in the alphabet. It goes A, B,
C.
C. Hold on. We're going to go back and talk about it. Get it on your paper, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Does name rhyme with door?
No.
No. Does name rhyme with same?
Yes.
Yes. So what letter does same have?
B.
B. So name is going to get
A B.
B. Okay? You may not get it yet, and that's okay. We have 4 sentences to practice, and we've got 2 more days of it.
I honestly thought you only put the letters on the rhyming ones.
Okay, you don't put them just on the rhyming words. The ones that rhyme get the same letter, but you put every line gets a letter. Okay? We're going to keep on going, so if you're confused, just get it on your paper, and we'll do the next one, the next stanza, and we'll come back. If we're still confused, we'll talk about it a little bit more.
There's a dog with a butterfly.
In math, you don't get it the first time. You won't get this the first time. It takes a little bit of practice, okay? Now, before we move on, let's talk about some alliteration. Do you see any words that start with the same sound? Remember, alliteration is at the beginning. There's one set of alliteration in that stanza. What you got, Kylan?
Short and stubby.
Yes, short and stubby. They both start with a S. Short and stubby. That's your alliteration. At the top, I want you to write alliteration. Okay, so what are they talking about in stanza 1? What are they talking about? I should see more hands. What's this poem going to be about? Braylon, what do you think this poem's about? A dog. Name what? Fido. And so in paragraph 1, they start to what? Describe him. They're telling you that his tail is short and his ears are not the same, but he always comes to the door. They're just telling you what the dog is doing, what he's like, what he looks like. Okay? Now, let's move on to stanza 2. Read stanza 2 for us, Travis. Everybody's looking at stanza 2. Wyatt, you with us? Go ahead.
I often have to tell him what he should and should not do. It doesn't seem to matter. He recently ate my shoe.
Good job. All right, what are your rhyming words in stanza 2? What are your rhyming words in stanza 2?
What rhymes?
What?
Shoe and two.
Oh, okay.
And
So you're saying
he just
I
got
gotcha.
done saying two.
you're saying I rhymed with him. Okay, what are your rhyming words in stanza 2? I should see more hands. Guys, I need everybody participating. Do not wait on your friends to do it for you. What are your rhyming words, Yazel?
Should and should.
No, that is repetition. We're going to get there. Rhyming words are when they have the same sound. It's not the same word. And look, Yazel, you see how these are the last word at the end of the line? Your rhyming words are going to be at the end of the line. So look at him, do, matter, and shoe. Which of those rhyme? They have the same sound at the end.
Oh. I can't wait. Ow.
Him, matter. Are those the same sound at the end? Mm-mm. What do you think it is, Jerry?
Do shoe.
Do, shoe. Do and shoe rhyme. Now, do not look at the letter. Because if I look at the letter, do ends in O. Shoe ends in E. Okay? But it's a silent E. Well, it's not really a silent E like a
The
sneaky
E
E.
and the O makes ooh.
The O and the E together make that sound. It's a vowel team. Okay? So don't look at the spelling, think about the sound. Do and shoe rhyme. Now, when I go back to my rhyme scheme, this stanza continues going. So I've used A, B, and C. What would be the next letter? D. But before I put D, I've got to make sure him doesn't rhyme with any of the ones from above. Does him rhyme with stubby?
No.
Does him rhyme with same?
No.
Him rhyme with door?
No.
Him rhyme with name?
No.
No. So it's getting its own letter, and I'm ready for what letter?
D.
D, because we've already used A, B, and C. The next letter is D. So we need D here. Okay, now, do. Does do rhyme with him?
No.
Do rhyme with name?
No.
Do rhyme with door?
No.
Do rhyme with same?
No.
Do rhyme with stubby?
No.
So if it doesn't rhyme with any of those, what's my next letter? E. Good, Travis. I like to hear that. You're with me. Is it making a little bit of sense? You're getting a little bit more than before? Okay.
Yes.
All right, matter. Does matter rhyme with do?
No.
Matter rhyme with him?
No.
Matter rhyme with name?
No.
Matter rhyme with door?
No.
Okay, look. R and R. They have the same letter. Do they have the same sound? No, so they are not rhyming words. They need the same sound. Matter and same. Matter and stubby. So what letter does it get? F. Now she, we already know, rhymes with something. What does she rhyme with?
Do.
So what letter does it get?
E.
E. Because they are a pair. They rhyme, so they get the same letter. Okay? Now, there is an example here of repetition that Yatzel told us earlier. Yatzel, what did you say?
Should and should.
Should and should. Remember, when they say the same word more than once, it's an example of?
Repetition.
Thank you, Ruthie. What is it?
Repetition.
I want you to circle those, and out beside it, write repetition. I didn't spell that right. Hold on. I knew that didn't.
What?
That's not right. Hold on. Okay, I did more of it wrong. Hold on.
It's REPI.
I got it. I'm just.
Think again.
There we go. Repetition. Okay, when they say the same word more than once. Yes, Landon.
Can I read stanza 3?
Well, we're not there yet, bud. All right, does everybody have this?
Yes.
All right, Landon, stanza 3. Okay, everybody should look at stanza 3. Just wait 1 minute. I have a couple of people still writing. We're going to do stanza 3 together, and then stanza 4 you're going to do by yourself. Ready for stanza 3?
See?
Okay, go, Landon. Everybody's following along. Stanza 3.
When I go off to work or play, he sits sadly at home to wait. He mopes around the house or yard and paces along the gate.
Good. All right, so we're still talking about the dog. Which words rhyme here? Which words rhyme here? Lillian? Good. Gate and wait. Okay, does play rhyme with any of the words from above? I want you to look at the last word of each line. Does it rhyme with stubby, same, door, name? Does it rhyme with any of these words at the end?
No.
So what's your letter going to be?
It rhymes with name.
A, B, C, D.
Play, name?
G.
I
No.
Play, name.
thought it would be.
No.
Okay, class.
Yes.
All right. We're going to go through it together because y'all are kind of getting off task. Let's do it together. Does play rhyme with stubby?
No.
Play rhyme with same?
No.
No.
Play, same.
No.
Same. Think about that last sound you hear. Same. Play. Is that the same?
No.
Play door.
No.
Play name.
No.
Play him.
No.
Play do.
No.
Play matter.
No.
Play shoe.
No.
Okay, so the last letter we used was what?
G.
In the alphabet, what was the last letter you used?
F.
F. What's the next letter after F? G. So this gets a G. Okay, listen closely. Give me your eyes. You cannot just look at the last line. The last line we did was E right here. But that's not the last letter in the alphabet. The last letter in the alphabet that we used was F. So you've got to think about the last letter in the alphabet, not just the last one that you did. Okay? All right, now, wait. Does wait rhyme with play?
No.
Wait rhyme with shoe?
No.
Okay, is Hayes the only one?
No.
I need you with me. Does wait rhyme with matter?
No.
Wait rhyme with do?
No.
Wait rhyme with him?
No.
Wait rhyme with name?
No.
Wait rhyme with door?
No.
Wait rhyme with same?
No.
Wait rhyme with stubby?
No.
So, wait gets what letter? What's after G?
A.
H. Okay, does yard rhyme with wait?
No.
Yard rhyme with play?
No.
Yard rhyme with shoe?
No.
Yard rhyme with matter?
No.
Yard rhyme with do?
No.
Yard rhyme with him?
No.
Yard rhyme with name?
No.
Yard rhyme with door?
No.
Yard rhyme with same?
No.
Yard rhyme with stubby?
No.
So it gets the next letter. What's after H?
I.
And gate, we've already said rhymes with
Wait.
wait, so it gets what letter?
H.
Okay, now there is one example of alliteration here. Alliteration is when the letters are the same at the beginning. Rhyming is the same sound at the end. Alliteration is the same sound at the beginning. So look in that stanza, and I want you to tell me your example of alliteration. If you've got it, raise your hand. The same sound at the beginning. Everybody should be looking at that stanza, Gavin. You're looking for words that have the same sound at the beginning. And they need to be in the same line. Just waiting on a few more of our friends. I should have everybody participating. Tell me what you got, Braylon. Sits and sadly. They both start with what letter?
S.
S. Sits and sadly. They both start with S. That's an example of alliteration. They start with the same sound. Yes. Okay. Braylon said and along. Bryson, sorry. That's a good example, but it's not alliteration. Because alliteration is when they are consonants. A is a vowel. Okay, so it doesn't count because it's a vowel. They need to be consonants. Okay? But Bryson, you're not the only one that didn't know that. We talked about it earlier, but I haven't seen a good example. That's a great example of it. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, if it starts with a vowel, it's not alliteration. It has to start with a consonant. Okay? Yes. Okay, the last stanza. You're reading by yourself. Listen closely to what I want you to do. You're going to read the stanza. Read you're reading and you're not going to know what to do.
I was just looking at.
Stop it.
Try this. Okay, I need all eyes up here. You're reading the last stanza by yourself. You're looking for one example of alliteration. Alliteration is when they have the same sound at the beginning, and it needs to be a consonant sound. Then you're also going to finish your rhyme scheme. So you find which words rhyme, and you finish lettering them. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
So you read it, find one example of alliteration, and then put the letters for your rhyme scheme. After you've done those 3 things, I'm coming to check it. Got it? Okay, go ahead and do it now.
What about him and home?
What?
Him and home.
I don't see that. What line are you in?
10. He and home.
That is an example, but sits and sadly is the best example. There may be more than one, but look for the best example of alliteration. Right, when you get it, raise your hand and I'll come around and check it.